So you just saw proceedings at the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry and Restitution, by the way, into SARS-related offences, which is one of many set up across states in the country to look into some of the issues that came out of the End SARS protest, which we had just a few weeks ago. So that's on one hand. But yesterday, a lot of Nigerians saw the report of a certain suit suing the AGF and states attorneys general, asking that these panels be stopped for various reasons. That's on another hand. So if there could be a third hand, is the fact that the police IGP put out a statement saying that, well, how did this come about? We're going to investigate this. So a lot of issues, really. And as you have seen in that opening slide, we're being joined by two gentlemen, legal practitioners at that, to help us look into these issues. First is Mr. Ogunlana, who is lawyer to End SARS campaigners, former chairman NBA Ikeja branch and co-convener New Nigeria Network. He will be joining us via Zoom this morning. And we have in our studios Dr. Paul Ananaba, a senior advocate of Nigeria, is also chairman NBA Speedle, that's section on public interest and development law. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, different issues. I mean, three hands, if there could be. But let's begin from that suit that was said to have been lodged by the police to seek to stop the panels across states. How did that hit you?
Well, from the public interest perspective, which Speedle does in NBA, it's unacceptable to have filed that suit, because the law on that point is clearly settled. So that suit was ill-advised, both in law and in terms of the public. It has so much devastating negative effect on the public. If you remember where we are coming from the NSAS issues and how the government tried to remedy the fury of Nigerians, the youths, by setting up these panels. An action of that nature is not something that should be done in such a hurry, without thorough research, and both of the law and the temperature of the environment. And I take you back to the law. The law is virtually settled. It was settled by the Supreme Court itself in the case of Fawemi and Babangida. And it also spilled over to Amechi and Rivers State. So after such decisions that are in the public domain, one will be disturbed to find such action. And the action is filed at the instance of Nigerian police. That is, it looks like stopping the wheels and the machinery of justice. Let me take it a step further down. What I'm trying to say is the Commission of Inquiry, if you look at the action from the way the report has been made, they try to say that police and all that item 45 in the first schedule is in exclusive legislative list. I don't understand that, because if a fresh employee, lawyer in my office makes such argument, I will likely be taken aback. In Fawemi and Babangida, the Supreme Court made it clear. Commissions of inquiry cannot be set up. That is why you don't hear much about the Puta panel report. That is what rubbished that report. So from Fawemi and Babangida, it became clear in this country that the federal government, there cannot be a central commission of inquiry in Nigeria. So the federal government can only set up commission of inquiry with respect to the FCT. And all the states can set, it's only the state that can set, because it's set up such, because it's in the residual list. the Commission of Inquiry is not in the exclusive legislative list. Now, the mere fact that the police is item 45 in the first schedule does not in any way mean that if you want to question acts of the police, it must be a federal government issue.
So what reference then, what inference would you then deduce from the section quoted by the lawyer, who said section 241 of the Constitution?
Well, I am not going to, because the matter is partly is sub judice if that action was actually filed. And if that action was actually filed, it is sub judice. Even though there were reports, which I cannot verify really, that the IGP is embarrassed by such action, and there are moves to discontinue it. Until I see a notice of discontinuance as a lawyer, I wouldn't know whether it is out. But strictly speaking, I'm just making general comments. These general comments, Section 21 of the Tribunal of Inquiry Act was interpreted by the Supreme Court along with Section 299 of the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, informed me and Babangida. And it came up again, like I said, in Amachi and the Rivers State government. So, you knowing the position of the law, that's what I'm going to. And then filing such action appears to as if you want to test the resolve of many Nigerians. Nigerians have been keenly interested and following these panels, and there has been no adverse report from this panel. They've been moving relatively smoothly. Now, you file an action in the Federal High Court in Abuja, for example. If that action is real, you file an action in the Federal Court of Abuja to stop all these panels in 36 states. If the average panel has 7 members, it is 36 plus FCT times 7. You want to suddenly truncate it with one court order or judgment. I believe that law is practiced in society.
But does it, some might say, well, perhaps that suit was just trying to test the waters, see what will happen, because to a large extent, especially in Lagos, virtually every time an issue was raised about the police, no IPO was ever, made present. So, some would probably adduce this court case to the fact that maybe it's an attempt to test the waters and see how Nigerians will react, because the police have not been making themselves available at the panels.
I tend to agree with you, but then the point I want to make is that waters are of different levels. As I crossed Bega coming to your station, I passed through waters, and if I had turned back and continued up to VI, I will get another set of waters. If you enter a ship, you see another waters are of different levels. Even if it was to test waters, not waters that some set of water that is just across the country, nationally, internationally. Have you looked at the magnitude of destruction that the EndSARS brought? Have you looked at the effect of the complaints of the youths? In fact, even the federal government recognized the enormity of the complaint of the youths and acted promptly and said, listen, disband SARS and put up panels, answer 5 for 5 and all that. Now, that is what you want to reverse by a court action. And that is why the judiciary in this country is put into the wrong walls. These are not things you bring to the judiciary. You want to test waters, and who do you want to test it on? The judiciary.
If we can just maybe go back a bit to the
Yes.
setting up of the panels across the states, because,
Yes.
I mean, legal practices at this point are even divided about that.
They can be divided, but the law is not divided.
Okay, so regarding the setting up, I mean, seeing how it played out from NEC and then flowing to the state, would you say that there's an instrument, really, a formal instrument, backing it up at that level, such that you can always refer to it and say, well, this is what set up the panel, so you can't...
No, you see, the federal government has lawyers. The states have lawyers. And these lawyers we're talking about, they are not just one or two lawyers. There must be legal opinion. You don't need an instrument. Those are part of the issues in the Oputa panel suit for me and Babangida. There's no formal instrument required as such. All that you see is that after that decision for me and Babangida, it became very clear that commissions of inquiry, whether you call it a panel of inquiry, commission of inquiry, tribunal of inquiry, whichever name you gave it, that the nature of such inquiry is now a residual matter, and it has to be done by the state. That's why NEC, wherein all the state governors are members, participated so that they can go back to their states and set up their panels.
So
and the federal government retained its own. Each state has commission of inquiry law. The law is already in place. You don't have to set up a special law for police brutality. The commission is already there. So all you need is to executive action to reactivate such laws.
So to that extent, it was done right.
That's the opinion I agree with.
Okay. Well, Mr. Adesina Ogunlana joins us. He's a lawyer to NSAS campaigners. You may have seen him at those panel sittings in Lagos, especially. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Now,
thank you so much. Good morning.
It's great to have you. Now, I'd like to know, for your clients, people you represent, the NSAS campaigners, how are they taking this latest report about a certain suit and the IGP's reaction? Just how are they internalizing it?
Thank you so much. Well, my people, my clients, consider the said suit as a proof of their conviction that the federal government of Nigeria, governments in Nigeria generally, has lived up to the tradition of not being trustworthy. They saw it as a vindication of their position to continue to pursue their aim peacefully, despite the setup of the panels in the first instance. That's how generally they see it.
But now, hearing the response of the IGP calling for an investigation, does that maybe restore that trust or that, belief in this process?
Not absolutely. From what I could see, the belief is that it is ururu, to use a local Nigerian parlance, that they are just trying to readjust themselves in perception of a strong reaction to this kind of suit, because it's a bit baffling that that kind of a suit will emanate from the police, land in the court, and I heard that even a date has been given for it, December 18th for hearing and all that, only for the IGP to come up to say he does not know anything about it. It's strange. It's possible this is a country that is funny, of anything goes. So we find it difficult to accept or to trust what the IGP is saying. And if indeed he does not know of it or he does not approve of it, it will only mean that either the IGP himself is a weakling or is not in control of his men, of his organization. That is at the very, very, very best. And at the possible worst, it will only mean that the gentleman is only trying to save face or a backlash. Apparently, it suggests to us that even at that best of scenario, that the government is in disarray. And how will you make a fanfare of setting up a panel? And in fact, one of the set of the panel and all that made the president, Muhammadu Buhari, to later say in one of his broadcasts that it will appear that the easy grant of the request of my client was misconstrued as maybe weakness on the part of government and all that. And now we saw this, only for a reversal again. It's baffling. So he said we'll be querying maybe the head of legal department. Maybe they will extend their investigation to Atoyebi, the senior advocate whose firm has been briefed, who actually briefed him and all that. So, but we are very skeptical, very skeptical.
Well, Mr. Ogunlana, one critical element in all of this conversation over time is trust. So with this suit and the reaction of the IGP, because there is also the likelihood, I mean, you have said that there is, you're skeptical and perhaps understandable by some people, but then how much does this action affect the trust quotient, whether it's being built or it's being depleted? How much? Just how significant?
Well, since I'm neither a mathematician, I won't be able to, or a statistician, I won't be able to put a percentage. I could always say, in general terms, that having adopted a watch and wait attitude, I can say for my client that very little. Because, like I said, it's a funny country, it's a funny government. Tomorrow now, Lai Mohammed or the IGP himself will come out as the Minister for Communication, will say, oh, maybe it's even fake news that the IGP had been misquoted. Maybe there could be pressure on the gentleman, and later today you could hear that, no, I never said so. Why should I say so? You cannot depend on these guys. That is the challenge, because what steps have been taken have been so huge that you now say that the government does not know about, because our position is this: it was the government who set up these panels in reaction to protests, lawful legal protests of Nigerian citizens, and suddenly the institutions being protested against, filed, which is under the executive, files in a suit and all that. And only for us to now hear that, oh, the head of that organization says, I'm not aware of that, I never approve of it. It shows dissonance. And when things are not certain, it's only an unreasonable person that will hold a certain solid trust in an uncertain situation.
Well, just to put it out there that we reached out to the police to also be on this conversation so we can get some clarity. We're still waiting for a response. And talking about the police, Mr. Ogunlana, what are the likely implications, if it is possible for you to speak to it? The fact that we haven't seen any police officer testify at these hearings up until this moment, and then this case comes up. What are the implications?
Well, legally speaking, one will first consider, do they have notice of these suits? That is, were summons or whichever subpoena they served on them, and properly so. I shouldn't like to speculate as a lawyer. If it is established, and that could only be established via the records of the various panels. I heard Honorable Justice Okuobi, chairman of the panel of Lagos, complaining rather bitterly to the council of the police, to the extent that there's a council, at least in Lagos, that had come up for the police, is to suggest that there is notice. The gentleman was quoted as saying that he was having difficulty, or maybe it's the honorable judge saying these people are saying they are finding it difficult to get their witnesses and all that. It's what we face ordinarily in the courts of Nigeria. You find out that prosecution witnesses, especially the ones from the police officer themselves, they will just come up with spurious something. They will not come. If they come, they will say they have a special assignment, they are posted somewhere, and generally the courts do accommodate them. But if it were to be the defense, witnesses for the defense or the complainant, an accused person, from my own experience and the experience of many lawyers, the courts are less lenient, are less accommodating. Now, the police force or organization that we have in Nigeria, it has a culture of impunity, like any other form of organs of the executive, and so they've carried their tradition to the panel. More so now than a defensive retreat. All these people have been accused, people who are petitioned against, officers have been petitioned against, have been accused of grievous crimes or offenses. Now they will be dodging, and to be fair to the police on the other side, at least we hear reports of court martial or people being disciplined, and of some of them being dismissed. It could be possible that some of these officials having been dismissed, they've gone away. And for a slack, loose organization that people are just posted maybe without due record, somebody that was in Lagos will have been taken to Ebonyi, from Ebonyi to Maiduguri. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just trying to be fair that it's possible that all this slackness, looseness is maybe finding it difficult for the organization itself to track down its own members to come and face the music. But really, like most organizations in the country, there's a lot of in-house cover-up, not only limited to the police, to cover up, even professional bodies cover up, so that people will be shielded away from justice. But the thing is this: the panel has been set up. There is a mandate to be exercised, and I will urge the panels to be fair but very firm. To be fair but very firm. If the police cannot produce their men, the matter will be taken. Having been served properly, you have due notice, then the matter will be resolved in the absence. Because if you serve someone, they can't wait for them forever. You have served due notices and you could not produce a witness. Too bad for you. And then the verdict naturally will go against them, because upon the facts, panels of law, courts of law, whatever, they always say upon the evidence before me. If you are not here, if you have been served notice and you are deemed to have notice and you do not come and give up your own defense or your side of the story, the matter will not halt the activities of the adjudicating body, and the evidence presented before them is what they will rely on to take their decision.
Okay, well, Mr. Ogunlana, we're due for a break now. When we return, we'll take up Dr. Ananaba on some of the issues, especially the procedure with government filing cases, perhaps the outcome of this panel and the implications. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Dr. Ananaba, what's the process? Because for a lot of people, they wonder how come. So there's an order said to have been, lodged by the police, but still the same police from the IGP saying, we're going to investigate this. How did this happen? So help us understand, for a government agency, as it were, like the police, how do they approach the courts? Do they need to speak to the Attorney General? What's the process really before they even go to court?
Well, it's a bit complex. What is settled is that the chief law officer of the country is the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice. There have been decisions allowing police lawyers to prosecute up to the Supreme Court. So that's where the complication began. Now you begin to see ICPC or AFCC have EFCC lawyers and all that. You remember during Adoke's tenure as AG, there were issues as to EFCC and the Ministry of Justice who should take the lead and all that. But that is history. I do not understand how. Well, I mean, the IG is a lawyer, so I don't understand how an action was filed in the name of Nigerian police and without an approval of the Inspector General of Police. That we need to be told. Now that there is a query, as we hear, I will expect that there should be an independent investigation, not the police investigating themselves. Speaking from public interest, because all these officers are paid from the tax of Nigerians, from the resources of the country. They are public officers. So I wouldn't expect the federal government to leave the matter at the point that it is just a query and all that. We need to know, for the sake of the future, for the sake of the public, for the sake of the integrity of processes in this country. Some of these things make Nigeria to be looked at in a derogatory manner in the Committee of Nations. This should not be allowed to go that way. In fact, you look at it, when the SARS protests were going on, and then the way it ended up with different groups saying different things. You also know the CNN connection about it. And now everyone seems to be settled to say, okay, what is it actually that led to these demonstrations? A judicial process, a due process is ongoing. If this due process is truncated and people feel aggrieved, what do you want people to do in future? The peaceful demonstration is truncated, it cannot work. You say, let us go by due process, headed by judges, processes are going on. You see that the required evidence sometimes is not seen, and there's a court process to truncate it, to stop it. So where will we find justice in the country?
You know,
that's the public interest issue. So now, if that turns out not to have been authorized by the Inspector General of Police, then who authorizes court actions in this country?
Which is the question of the process. What process normally should that kind of thing take?
No.
Is it possible for a legal representative to file a case in court on behalf of a client without the client's notice?
No, it's not possible. The lawyer, we have professional ethics. Of all professions in this country, none has developed professional ethics than the legal profession, because we practice the law.
Okay, so if it wasn't ordered by the
I'm not going to.
No, let's just assume, because of the notice from the... Just one moment.
All right.
In the event that is the case, what would be the position of maybe the MBA hospital about a lawyer that contravenes or violates the ethics of the profession?
The rules of professional conduct are very clear as a procedure to follow. And that's not what to discuss at this point. Let me give you a scenario. If the police is to brief a lawyer, typically, the lawyer doesn't have to go to the IGP to get the instruction. The Commissioner of Police legal in the police, or people from that department, you are familiar with, have been directed by the Inspector General of Police. You've heard that before. No law says, after such, assuming that's the case, that you should say, no, IG, call me on phone first, or write a letter yourself. That is why when you say that there's a query and there's inquiry, I go for an independent inquiry that will involve NBA, because the professional status of the lawyers that filed the action is at stake. So we need to be sure that there was an instruction. And beyond instruction to a lawyer, there is also perfection. So who paid or pays? Who paid or pays for the process? Who pays for the service?
Because it must have been paid for.
There has to be payment for the service. Who pays or pays? You should imagine the magnitude of the case. It's a case stopping 36 panels headed by 36 retired judges with legal process, like in Lagos. Look at the panel. My friend Deborowa, and the senior advocate of Nigeria, he shut down practice for a long time to be in that panel. That's how serious the government took this matter. And a government agency brings an action. It's not even by an NGO. It's worrisome.
You've dealt with cases involving the police.
Yes.
And I mean, looking at this process, there are a lot of people asking. In fact, Mr. Ogunlana mentioned that, what is the police hiding? Now, we've seen that over time, it's been hard to find policemen, just one at least, to come testify. And the questions people are asking is, how difficult is it to find a policeman, at least just to speak? I know it might be tricky because listening to some of the witnesses...
I'll give you a scenario.
Okay.
It's just that the filing of this action has worsened confidence in the police. And it is important that steps were taken immediately to try to stop this action. Because it would have been revolting if this action was to allow to continue in that way. It means that, take for example, if the brutality took place in Sokoto and the people had run to safety in Lagos, they moved to Sokoto to appear before this panel, only to be told, please go back to Lagos, there's a court order stopping the panel. Again, we go back to the police part you're talking about. I'm aware of certain situations, like some of the police officers may have been dismissed, may be on special duty out of the country, or may have been dead. That can account, but it should not account for massive non-appearance of witnesses.
Let me ask Mr. Ogunlana this one, because I mean you and Dr. Ananaba clearly are speaking, about the same thing and on the same page about this. But the question that I would want to ask is about the fact that the policemen, they couldn't trace them, and you also alluded to the fact that they could have been transferred. Don't we have documents to trace where policemen are at any given point? Don't we have a list of their deployment, a schedule of their deployments, a schedule of their transfers, a schedule of their retirement, a schedule of their dismissal? Don't we have addresses where these people can be found or located? Because the assumption a number of people might have is, if the police is not showing up, clearly there is something to hide. Can you hear me, Mr. Ogunlana? Oh dear. Well, you want to attempt that question, Dr. Ananaba?
Yeah, like I said, it's not so much of hiding. Like I said, you see, you earn repetition.
No. Please speak to the fact that there are supposed to be documents. We're supposed to have it's supposed to be possible to trace.
It goes beyond that in reality. We also are not against the police, because we need the police and we understand their own difficulties within what they work.
Okay.
Beyond the police, what is the state of our statistics in Nigeria? Data. And I used to tell people that in Nigeria we like the word about. I wish that we can ban the use of the word about. Then it will help us to be clear, to work harder in this country.
How do you mean?
Good. What is the population of Nigeria? About 90 million. About 100 million. About 200 million. About 300 million.
It's a mathematical term.
About.
Approximately. Okay, we could use approximately. How about that?
Now I can tell you that if you ask the population of the US, the population agency in the US will tell you this is the number of Americans.
Even that will be an approximation.
This number have died. Even on the even with the as one person drops or comes in, these are the number of immigrants that have come into this country. These are the people that stayed back. These are the ones that left.
But we're talking about the chief investigative agency.
I'm coming to police.
Which is the police.
I'm coming to police. Have you looked at the general outlay of the police? Are they well funded? If the funds are given, are they being used? Do they have equipment? Where would they have the data to know where which police officer could have been? These are the important issues. So if you're asking, you should have known where this person, it's possible you may not find. It's possible that some of them have been burnt in the stations that were put on fire. You will hear things like that.
So this is like an SOS signal from the police saying, we need help in this area.
So there's need for help. But beyond that, we should begin to value data in this country. It's a public thing.
Right.
In fact, you could get to police website and say if Okoro Okafor is in the police and we're looking for him, Okoro Okafor in police, he was at this place here. This is his data. This is where he is. So at the panel of inquiry, there will be no worry. We have checked. This officer is presently in Gombe. So give him 3 days, he will come. CP Gombe, bring him back down. That's how it goes.
Speaking of those panels, sittings continue today and tomorrow. So we'll definitely be seeing Mr. Ogunlana there enjoying Channels Television for live coverage as usual. But I'd like to thank Mr. Additional Ogunlana, who's a legal practitioner and lawyer to NSAS campaigners,